This video I'm just going to explain to you in a nutshell how Ripple works and the two components that it's made out of, and then by the end of the video it's up to you really to decide if it's something that you want to invest in or best left alone. This is an interview from the Financial Times with Daniel Aranda, who's the managing director of Ripple in Europe. He's got quite a few interesting things to say about the business model, so let's listen to the key points that he brings up in this interview.
Ripple is a cross-border payment network, and the members of the network are financial institutions. So we work with banks as well as some non-bank financial institutions, and they use Ripple as a way to move funds around the world to other financial institutions.
So what Michael's saying there is it shouldn't come as any surprise. Anyone who knows anything about Ripple knows that it's made from two components, but the first and primary component is the way that it transfers money from bank to bank overseas. Now, there are already methods of doing this with SWIFT and Western Union, but that takes up to 3 days sometimes, and it also costs money to transfer that money in the first place, whereas Ripple, it still costs a little bit of money, but we're talking just a few cents, opposed to the dollars that it takes for a SWIFT transaction. And the main difference is the speed of the transaction. Ripple can do it within seconds, opposed to days. So this makes you wonder why they're not doing this sort of thing in the first place. Why are we using antiquated systems like SWIFT, which take days, when we're living in an age of the internet where everything is almost instant in the first place? I can send an email now from England to Japan, it'll take seconds. Why can't money do this? So let's listen to a few more pointers as to what the reasons are and where Ripple can take this.
The internet has really reset my expectations for how services are supposed to work. Also, like if I send you a package, say you're in Brazil and I send you a FedEx package, I'm going to be able to track that online and actually have complete visibility in terms of where the package lies along that process until it's actually delivered and received by you. When I send funds around the world, I don't have that kind of visibility.
This next bit, Michael explains exactly what it is Ripple's going to do for the banks, and he actually goes into a little detail as to what the banks are doing at the moment. When you hear it, you'll be pretty surprised as to exactly what they're doing. It sounds pretty stupid, to be honest with you, and how Ripple's going to free up a lot of their capital so they can start to invest the existing money that they already have into other areas. It sounds really beneficial for the banks. Just take a listen.
When banks use Ripple, right, they can use it for financial messaging between each other. Right? That is one capability they are leveraging of the technology. And that is a capability that competes with things like SWIFT, right? Yeah. Just a better way to communicate a payment message between two institutions. The second piece that they're using it for is just synchronizing their core ledger systems when they do a payment with the core ledger system of the receiving bank. So that removes settlement risk, and settlement risk is a big problem for a lot of financial institutions, especially when they're doing large amounts of transactions. The third piece that they're using it for is liquidity management, and this is where we want to deploy digital assets and cryptocurrencies, meaning that if I am Santander here in the UK, who's a client of ours, and I'm sending to Singapore, to let's say Standard Chartered in Singapore is also on Ripple, if we're going to do a cross-border payment, there has to be Singapore dollars on the other side, right? You have to make that liquidity available in the receiving currency, and we think cryptocurrencies and digital assets are going to be a great way to actually fund that liquidity. Today, your typical treasury manager at a bank or at a corporate will pre-fund accounts around the world.
The so-called Nostro Vostro accounts.
Yeah, they'll pre-fund their Nostro Vostro accounts. They'll tie up all kinds of liquidity around the world. We've talked to multiple different corporations, one large cap one in Japan, who had much as $5 billion just sitting in accounts around the world in order to service their various payments. If you were able just to do payments on demand in real time, you could free up all that capital to invest back in your business. And that could be good for the businesses that use these services and ultimately generate more demand for the banks who offer the service as well. Make no mistake about it, like we truly believe that this is the internet moment for financial services. Like it's nothing short of that. And when I was referring to before, we think a lot of customer expectations and behaviors are being informed by the internet. Our answer to that is to essentially bring in internet-like infrastructure for the way that money moves between financial institutions around the world. And we mean that in a very literal way. Like, the internet is a collection of servers that operates off of common protocols to be able to communicate. The network that we're building is very similar. and the network that the blockchain industry is building is very similar in its topography. There are some key differences, but we really believe this kind of infrastructure is going to change the way that financial services is rendered.
So this all sounds very good from a banking perspective, and I can see how financial organisations are going to benefit greatly from using Ripple services. But what does it mean for people like you and me who want to invest in the Ripple coin itself? And Michael's going to explain a little bit about where he sees the future of cryptocurrencies in general and where he sees them in the future.
I think when we look at 3 to 6 years, like we're very, very bullish on the outlook. We think these digital assets are going to be a fundamental part of the way that financial services are rendered, that they're going to deliver a lot of value, but it will take time.
So Michael's saying it's going to take time, which is a pretty safe bet for him to have said. I completely agree with that. At the end of last year, 2017, we saw huge increases in bitcoins and cryptocurrencies across the board, including Ripple. Now, at the beginning of 2018, their value has completely dropped, more than half of the value of a Bitcoin to what it was a few months ago. Look at a Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as more of a commodity, something trading alongside with something like gold. People are investing in it, they're holding on to it. It's going to hold a certain value. It's not going to go away. It's not going to take over banks, for instance, but it's definitely something that's going to be here for a very, very long time. I would suggest investing in Ripple. I've already invested some of my money into Ripple, but you're not going to become a millionaire by the end of the year. I think it's extremely over-optimistic to believe that Ripple is going to be worth anything over $10 a coin by the end of 2018. A lot of people think it's going to be worth hundreds of dollars in a few years. I really don't see that. It's just not possible. I think you'd be quite happy to invest your money now when it's trading at 70 cents for a Ripple coin, and by the end of the year seen it as $5. That is definitely a good return. That is something that I can see happening. I think it's very plausible to imagine that happening, but to become anything more than $10, I think that's over optimistic. And for the people who believe it's going to be worth over $100 by the end of this year, I think you've basically made a miscalculation there. I really cannot see that happening because of the nature of the way that Ripple is being used and its general purpose in the first place. It's a useful coin. It's a coin that's going to be around for a while, but you're not going to see huge astronomical returns on it like the people who invested in Bitcoin at the very beginning. Anyway, thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be back with a lot more videos on cryptocurrencies, especially on Ripple coin, and we'll see how this plays out over the next week, and I'll keep you updated. Thanks a lot for watching. Take it easy. Goodbye.